It is 40 years since the first IVF baby was born in the UK, the beginning of the reproductive revolution. Well, new discoveries are being made, and even scientists say we may need to review the code of ethics. Are we ready for the consequences? You're watching Roundtable with me, David Foster. A baby one day born without the need for either eggs or sperm. Could it happen, or will medical ethics stop the research in its tracks? Are cutting-edge developments in reproductive science vital, however, to the future of human life?
Eggs created from skin cells used to produce mice, artificial wombs for sheep. The science of reproduction is advancing, offering up new possibilities for humans in the future. Are we on the verge of a new chapter of the reproduction revolution? And could breakthroughs change our human code of ethics? IVF changed the future of infertile couples around the world. The first test tube baby was born 40 years ago in the UK. Since then, millions of babies have been born, with the success rates now close to 50%. But is the world now at the precipice of human reproduction without the need for eggs, sperm, or a real womb? In 2017, research by Japanese scientists led to the birth of live mouse pups using eggs made from adult skin cells. Last year, lambs were successfully grown in an artificial womb. Scientists say synthetic embryos, or embryoids, could allow them to study early stages of human development, as well as to screen drugs to see which cause birth defects and to increase the chance of pregnancy.
I think it's extremely exciting because actually it provides opportunity not to have to use so many mouse or human embryos for research, because we will be able to mimic this particular stage of our own development.
Despite the excitement, there is caution around developments. 3 years ago, scientists accidentally discovered that stem cells can be enticed to assemble themselves into structures resembling human embryos. But they lacked the cell types needed to make a placenta, a heart, or a brain. Embryoids were realistic enough that they were destroyed to stop them developing. Academics and religious leaders have long been concerned by the use of embryos for research.
Ethically, the rules that the Catholic Church promotes are really very simple, that all research should be respectful of human life and respectful for human individuals, so no one should be killed in the process of doing medical research.
As new discoveries are made, scientists think new ethical measuring sticks will be needed. Currently, the 14-day rule doesn't allow embryoids to be studied beyond 2 weeks.
Même si je considère que l'embryon est une personne, ça n'est pas un argument pour ne pas faire de recherche, vu que l'on fait de la recherche à tous les âges de la personne humaine, c'est même la base de la recherche médicale.
The potential for artificial embryos to create parentless and genetically engineered humanity opens up the possibility of future abuses. At the moment, science doesn't have the tools to take the parents out of the equation. How long before artificially grown human embryos become a reality? Should ethical limits be stretched to allow studies to go further? Is the world ready for the possible consequences of this new cutting-edge research?
Very pleased to say that joining me at the round table we have Zeynep Gurtin, a sociologist based at the London Women's Clinic and at the Centre for Family Research, which is part of the University of Cambridge. We have Joyce Harper, Professor of Human Genetics and Embryology at the University College London, Aileen Feeney, Chief Executive of Fertility Network UK, and Gedis, Grudzinskas, Consultant in Infertility and Gynaecology. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming. I think I may upset some people with this first question, but it's up to all of you to chip in on this. When there are so many diseases out there killing people, why does fertility matter? Aileen first.
So I think everybody has the right to try for a child. I think it's very, very important that it's one of those things inside people that they really, really desperately want a child. And infertility is a disease, and it's not a lifestyle choice to be able to have a child.
But it's not life-threatening.
It's not life-threatening, but it's certainly life-enhancing.
So why does it matter?
Well, it
Particularly
matters
to the thousands of women that you've seen over the years.
It's always mattered. The drive to have children and have a family is natural. What has happened most recently, with respect to your question, it's not isn't it a disease. The WHO, in its wisdom, not so long ago, declared it a disease. Previously, we considered it to be the consequence of diseases which cause infertility on the male side, on the female side. But now it has the infertility has disease status from this august body. But the drive to have children is normal, natural, and very powerful. And if one's wish to start a family is not fulfilled, then it can be killing.
And you had 2 children, or 3 children, 3 children.
Yes, so I know what it's like.
Through IVF.
Yes, I know what it's like to be that woman who has infertility problems. And I had planned to have children around age 30, but for various reasons didn't start trying until I was 35. And I know more than anybody that at age 35 fertility decreases. And I went through 5 years of fertility treatment, delivered my first son just before my 40th birthday, which was not what I planned. But during those 5 years, the word that I would use, I felt barren. I cannot imagine what my life would have been like without children. As you said, Gedis, it's natural. It is natural to want to have a family.
I understand that, but you talked about you were 35.
Yes.
You were 35. Now, the average age for a woman having a child in the UK 40-something years ago was 24. 2015, it was 28.7. It's going up. In Greece, I think it's got the highest elderly prima gravida, I think it's called age average in Europe, it's 31. That was your choice. That was a lifestyle choice, and that may have left you, as you say, feeling barren.
Yes, I mean,
but that may have been your choice.
I do a lot of work at the moment. We've set up a group called the Fertility Education Initiative to remind people about this issue. And I was very aware, but I wasn't in the right place. Between 30 and 35, didn't have a partner, the right partner. And so it was one of those issues that I wasn't busy. I was busy with my career, but it was just I wasn't with the right person.
Let me ask you a personal question. I mean, was this on the NHS? Did you pay for this, or was it publicly funded?
It's a little bit more complicated. I work in the field, so
okay,
a perk of the job.
But should it be publicly funded when perhaps it's a lifestyle choice that you've made, not to have children until later in life? I know you're not elderly, but I mean in childbearing terms, should it be publicly funded?
Nice guy, yes. Yes,
it
absolutely.
should be publicly funded. It's a disease. We've dealt with that part of it already. It should be publicly funded. There are variations on aspects of use of fertility technology, but to start a family, to have a family, it's appropriate for public funds to be made available. And all that goes with it. And that's the preventative healthcare programs, which lead people to live in a healthier way, not just with respect to what they put into their bodies.
Giving people a chance to have children when perhaps they wouldn't have done otherwise raises the question, as put out by some people there, that we should be worrying about overpopulation. Is that a valid argument?
Well, I mean, at the moment, we actually don't have replacement levels of fertility in the UK. So for most developed countries, that's not really the relevant concern.
That's because people of my age are living longer, and we've got to have somebody to look after.
Yes, and actually we're having less children, we're having them later in life, which means we have less total fertility. But I would actually just even question the premise that women are necessarily choosing to have children later in life. This is not an individual choice that people are making with a kind of an open slate, but it's actually a result of a variety of social factors. The fact that people are studying later, the fact that job security doesn't come till...
And they've chosen to study later. They've chosen to do this.
Sure,
It is a lifestyle choice.
Well, I guess you could call it a choice in some sense, but we have to be aware that that choice is contextualized within a society in which it's harder to buy a house, it's harder to have sort of a stable family life or a stable job. So many of the people I see, many of the women I see who have, as you would say, left it later to have children, have done so specifically because they wanted to be responsible. They wanted to have children at a stage in their lives where they were economically stable, where they could provide everything they wish to provide for those children.
You jump in at any time.
So,
you look
well,
as though you want to say something.
I'm not looking puzzled. I'm just thinking about what's happening around us. The model. So, firstly, we are to blame. Our generation is to blame, right? Because we did not contribute to the debate or get involved actively enough to for us to finish up where we are here, with, and what Zeynep has just described are those ambitions which are not going to be fulfilled. Home ownership, stable job, and it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, I get that.
And so
we're adapting to the conditions that we've created.
Well, the consequence of the conditions are what we're discussing today, and there is technology available. So what should we do? Should we move with its technology and innovation and let society, develop, evolve, organically develop, emerge, or should we be doing something else?
We'll talk about the technology if we can in just a moment.
But can I just say, it's
Of
not
course.
just women, it's men as well. You know, there's a huge amount of men in their 30s, early 30s, even late 30s, who are not ready to commit because they have
Well,
lifestyle.
they know they can go on producing active sperm until they're 90.
So who are the women supposed to have children with? A much older man?
Yeah, and infertility now is actually the largest cause of infertility is from male factors as well. The research has shown.
Yeah, stress, lifestyle.
Not necessarily just stress, but just genetics.
It's just genetic.
And by the time somebody generally starts IVF, they've already been trying for a family for 3 years, and so you know that's important to remember as well.
Let's talk about the advances in the last 40 years.
Okay.
I know you want to say something about technology in just a moment, but in simple terms, how far have we come since Louise Brown's birth?
Well, IVF has become accessible and used widely. I think it's quoted 7 million babies in the world have been born through IVF.
And as a practitioner?
Sorry, where have we come in 40 years? Firstly, IVF works. 40 years ago, there were so many naysayers. It works.
And the children are normal, aren't they?
The children are
you wouldn't
normal.
know. And this was, of course, one of the things, I don't know whether you remember, but 40 plus years ago, everybody was saying, well, what's it going to be like?
Of course, it works, but the main issue is because it works and works well in centres that do the work diligently, it doesn't mean it works that as well in other centres. And there are all sorts of checks and balances that are terribly important if we are to achieve our aim, and that is to have the birth of a child who will develop normally in the context of a health supported by a healthy mother and anybody she chooses to have around her.
But IVF can't work miracles, so we can't. If we have a 45-year-old woman in our clinic, they have a tiny percentage, 1 or 2% chance of having a child if they're using their own fresh eggs at that time. That's recent data from the HFEA. So we're still
fertilisation, embryology.
We're still within the boundaries of biology.
And I think one of the very interesting developments of IVF across the last 40 years is we're talking about a technology that was developed for a very specific purpose, to bypass blocked fallopian tubes, which in 40 years has expanded to an enormous technology that not only creates families where they couldn't have been created before because of medical impediments, but has led to the creation of many new family forms through things like
Why do we not see quite so many multiple births, if I could put it that way? Rather than twins, we used to see sextuplets, quintuplets. Why do we not see quite so many now? Is that one of the advances?
Well,
can you imagine having 6 children?
Putting back one embryo at a time, which is currently considered the gold standard.
In the past.
I think in the olden days, maybe.
The profession and everybody involved in the profession is acting much more responsibly, but not all of our colleagues act responsibly with respect to how many embryos are returned. The objectives of the centres, because this is commercially driven, whether it is in the public or the independent sector, are success rates.
I think you referred to it as the baby-making industry.
Well, it's not a term that I would use, but it's commonly used. And the users of the service, the couples who seek care, have a view. They have a view which perhaps flippantly I may describe as bog off, buy one, get one free. And those of us who still go to supermarkets, but I'm not allowed to anymore, is we know that the expiry date, there is the product that we buy, the perishable goods that we buy, will deteriorate much more quickly. So it doesn't make sense to put back more than 2 more than one embryo, let's get back to the point, more than one embryo, if a centre is doing its job properly, especially in the first treatment cycle.
Let me bring up a couple of other things that it would be worth discussing. Creating babies from stem cells. I think it's been tried in mice. Will it be tried in humans? Take a bit of my skin? Yeah.
I mean, this is sort of, these new developments are kind of in the future. You know, it'll be, I think, several decades before that's even possible in humans. Obviously, everything's much more complicated at the human level than it is at the level of mouse and, you know, mice cells and things like that. But I think, you know, it could certainly be possible. More amazing things have happened that we didn't think would one day be possible. But whether ethically or legally or socially we would think that a desirable scenario is obviously a completely different question.
I think it was last December, wasn't it? There was the first successful uterus transplant baby born.
Yeah, I believe
in
so.
the United States. Now,
Yes,
how about that?
Before that,
Yeah.
there's a very big Scandinavian program, been very, very successful. I think they've got at least 10.
Yes, they're the world leaders.
so
if I wanted to have a uterus transplant, I'd go to Scandinavia. There are not many reasons.
Okay,
why
so
I'd go there,
my
but that would
research
be
is
one.
wrong, but it's not commonplace. It's still...
No, it's not common.
still
It's
no.
a centre of
Yeah.
excellence. You know, the whole procedure takes months and months and months, and the operation takes 6 to 8 hours, and the
And it
divorce
can be
rate.
from an either living donor or a deceased donor.
They prefer it from a living. It's been much more
Yeah,
successful.
the one I read about was a living donor.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she said she felt really connected to the child that she'd given her uterus,
Yes,
to
fabulous.
the mother, yeah, and the birth. So that was 10 years ago. That would have been thought
Impossible, probably.
absolutely
yeah.
impossible. So where are we going with this now?
So they're making babies from skin? It will happen.
Do you think it will?
Ethics change. Think of the ethics of 70 or 80 years ago. I'm not going to refer to the ethics of certain nations at the time, and so that's not relevant. But the main point is that our ethical position changes. The ethical position in different cultures is different. So what is not perceived to be ethical, say in this country, for example, family balancing, gender choice prior to returning an embryo. Right? We almost did it in this country, agreed to do it about 7 or 8 years ago, but we didn't. In other countries, it's...
so for those of us who don't understand, just explain. We almost went down the route of being able to say, you want a boy, you want a clever boy, you want a clever boy with blue eyes,
No, just at the moment, just gender. So for over
gender.
20 years, we could choose the gender of our child, and we do it in the UK and Europe for medical reasons. But as Gedis said, globally, the rules and regulations around new technology and how we bring it in and how we develop it are very varied. So in the UK, we have the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority.
Yeah.
We're very regulated. We've got a great framework to work around. So we discuss new technology and decide whether evidence is appropriate to bring that in. But in other countries, they don't have any regulation. So globally...
So being very basic about it, we're saying that embryos that were female, if you wanted a boy, would be thrown away, and embryos that were female, if you wanted and would be kept if you wanted a girl.
But
in some countries.
Yeah, so in the US, you can buy everything in the US. So yeah, in the US, it's legal to do that.
Goodness gracious.
Well, in the perspective of responsible practice, I don't use the word embryos thrown away. I don't use the word embryos die. These terms, to me, are far too emotive. We're dealing with serious personal matters here. But it would not be unusual, for example, if someone who wishes to have a girl, a female baby, because the house is littered with boys. It's not unreasonable to explore this, but in a practical way. And should the embryos that are derived from a procedure for that particular couple and lady be male, there's a choice not to discard the embryo. A decision about whether to use that, transfer that embryo or not, can be made at a later time.
I think
or it can be made available for embryo donation.
I think we're stepping over the line. I mean, I have 3 boys. I think to have a girl in my house, but calling it family balancing has always annoyed me. Bringing a girl into my house would not balance my family. It would make it very unbalanced. We're very balanced with children of the same gender. So I'm very glad that I'm working.
But you love whichever ones you get, though, don't you?
Well,
I mean, that's the point. If you
But
had
then
a
you
girl,
can-
you'd love her and think she fitted in. If you had another boy, you'd think the same thing.
But some people don't think that. Some people
Well, I
really want.
take what you're given and love them anyway.
If they've got the money, that's the other thing. It's not the normal people that would do this. It'd be very wealthy people that would afford to go through IVF for, in my view, these not necessary reasons.
And the whole debate around designer babies is a very big one, you know, and it's one that gets discussed in the media at regular intervals. And are we trying to create children just with blue eyes or extra clever kids? And actually, by far the greatest majority of what people go to IVF or any reproductive technology for is just to have a child that they are very, very much wanting, very keen to have, and they will, of course, absolutely love whatever it is they get. So the whole designer baby question is very much a thin
Are there
edge.
going to be changes? I think it's, what, 10 years at the moment you can keep eggs frozen?
Eggs, you can freeze eggs.
Some
for 10
people
years.
pushing for it to be a longer period.
Yeah, for medical reasons.
Some people,
Yeah, there's a petition at the moment.
Oh, some people, both of you.
I started the
Yeah.
petition a couple of weeks ago. So we've got a parliamentary petition that people can sign, and we published an article. Zeynep was on it in Bio News. I've had enough of people talking about it, because we're telling women, if you have the money and you think you want to delay fertility, you know, freeze your eggs in your 20s. But that means, if you froze them when you were 25, UK legislation at the moment, you'd have to use them by 35. So we are.
Is there a reason for that legislation?
I have no idea. And sperm, if you have a vasectomy, you can freeze your sperm for 55 years.
Yeah.
But if you freeze your eggs because you are at university or pursuing a medical career or whatever, you can only freeze them for 10 years, which is ludicrous.
Are we sort of getting it about right?
Oh, sorry.
Are we getting the debate about this about right, do you think? Not at this table, but in general.
I don't think there's enough public awareness of that. Certainly, egg freezing in particular has become more well known and spoken about because of the celebrities that have spoken about it, and that does raise awareness. But the 10-year limit, absolutely, I don't think people are aware of. So I think the petition is incredibly important.
What do you think about the fact that we talked about when you had your children, women having babies at a later stage of life? Do you think that's going to change?
No, I don't think women.
Do you think everybody's going to say, "Hang on, why don't we just do it early? Get it out of the way."
I didn't want my children at 40 and 42. I wanted them earlier. If I'd have frozen my eggs when I was 25, after trying for a year at 35 and not succeeding, I could have used those young, healthier eggs, and I would have got pregnant a lot quicker than 5 years. I don't believe that, being an older mother, I really don't believe women are going to want to have children in their 50s. No. The majority of women are not going to delay it past that.
I've got a note here that you said to my producer, in the long term, the next generation of women will go back to having babies earlier.
I do
If
think
that's
in the
true,
long
why?
term.
Why?
Well, I think because for my generation, if our children leave it as late as we are doing it to have their children, we're not going to get to see our grandchildren. We're certainly not going to be fit and healthy to be able to enjoy them. So I feel like there's a real incentive for me. I don't have children yet. I'm 39. I'd very much like to. And when I do, hopefully, there'll be an incentive for me to try and help them reach a level of stability that if they wish to have children, they're in a position to be able to do that.
Because we're all living longer.
Maybe,
What about
maybe
this
younger.
prospect that you start having babies in your early 20s and you can be a great by the time you're about 46? Sorry, Aileen.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Education's really, really important, and Joyce mentioned it before. So at the moment, when you're going through school, generally you're told how not to get pregnant, but you're not told about how to protect your future fertility and what the impact of your fertility decline is. You know, people say...
Isn't that something that you don't need to be taught at school, that you could
No,
learn
you
about
do.
when you were about 19 or 20?
No. Why would you not learn about it?
Because there's an awful lot to learn at school, and is that absolutely vital? Do you think it's vital?
Yeah, I think it's vital.
We've been doing a project with adolescents. We're doing a big project called the Modern Families Project as part of our fertility education initiative. And the work we've done so far, the kids want to hear it. We thought they wouldn't. We were wondering whether we were, barking up the wrong alley. But no, they really do want to hear it. And they want to know about it, if they're gay, can they still have children? All types of how the technology can help. They want to know this information. Basically, I mean, even my 15-year-old boy, he has talked about, wanting to have children at some point. So they do think about it, for sure.
Gedis, you've been in this business for a long time. Okay, you've specialised in this. You must have seen very many happy cases and been delighted at the advances that have been made.
The most striking story was when a couple came to discuss donor eggs, and I launched into a monologue about the use of donor oocytes and so on and so on. And the couple said, "Can we raise something?" my goodness me. And I thought, okay, I better shut up and listen here. And they said, we have decided, because the lady said, I need to explore using donor oocytes. My husband and I have talked, so it's a long time ago, there's a hubby person there, right? And he and I decided that we wanted to share the fact that the child was not going to be biologically of me, so we're going to use donor sperm and donor eggs, but we're going to be the pregnancy parents, the parents of birth, the legal parents, the parents of, and so society changes, and we learn from people. So there are, you know, and that to me is, goodness me, and there are many other things I've learned from individuals and couples, but I've forgotten.
Well, we can talk about that later. Listen, thank you. I'm sorry we've got to cut the conversation short. Thank you all very much for coming in. Fascinating conversation, 40 years on. Where will we be in 40 years' time, I wonder? Roundtable with me, David Foster. Thank you to the guests. Thank you for watching, and thank you to the team for putting it all together. Bye-bye for now.